Matachines is a mystery. It's about the coming of a new spirituality that's going to blend the spirituality of the conquerors with the spirituality of the conquered. Every community has a little bit different variation of the tradition, and the meanings are all different. From Las Cruces north is what we call Danza de la Palma. People talk about the Palma as a way of teaching the Trinity. This pantomime, this play, is quite amazing. There's the king, there's the little girl, and there's ancestral spirits known as abuelos. The occasions of the matachines are many. There's a bunch of matachines for Christmas and New Year's, but you find them at other times in the saint's calendar. The music of the matachines is the most ancient music in Mestizo, Indo-Hispano, New Mexico. In New Mexico, we use the violin and the guitar. In southern New Mexico, with the Danza de la Flecha, there's like a little bow and arrow that's also a percussive device. The arrow doesn't shoot, but it's like a clacker, and there it's violin and drum and tombe. These beautiful melodies that are deceptively simple because they repeat and they repeat and they repeat. They have melodic qualities that link them with Europe, and the repetitive qualities links it with Native American music, and yet the rhythms are all 2 against 3. If you can tap your foot in 3s or 2s to the same piece, it's a song. This is the coming together of the European and the indigenous and the African. And it's a perfect soundtrack for 2 spiritual traditions or multiple spiritual traditions finding common ground. The narrative of the matachines, this pantomime, this play, is quite amazing. The king, the monarca Moctezuma, there's one of the movements where he is sitting in a chair and the little Malinche is in charge, and she gets a palma. The monarca holds his hands out and she does a series of passes of the palma around his outstretched hands. And that's a transitional moment. People even call it la conversión de Moctezuma, the conversion of Moctezuma in some communities. Moctezuma comes alive. He's very happy after the Malinche converts him, and he dances around all of the other kneel dancers and brings them back to life. Carnué, in San Antonio and East Mountains, one of the abuelos is an abuelo in drag, who's called La Perijundia. She taunts the children run after her, and she gives the children candy. She fights with the bull. The toro is the totem animal of Spain. The toro is stalked and killed by the abuelos. If this is indeed the totem animal of imperial Spain, and it's lying on the ground being castrated by the ancestral spirits from here, boy, that's the end of imperialism. And the people that came here from Europe changed. They're part of the regional Indo-Hispano culture here. Matachinas is a mystery. It's about the coming of a new spirituality that's going to blend the spirituality of the conquerors with the spirituality of the conquered.
Many years ago, there was another popular Christmas tradition, the performance of an ancient morality play, Los Pastores. The play, which followed the shepherd's journey to see the Christ child, was brought to the Southwest in the 17th century by Catholic missionaries as a way to teach their religion to the native people. Early evidence of Los Pastores lives on in books and letters and in a handful of aging photographs. The plays went in and out of favor for over 300 years, but by the 1920s, they had virtually disappeared. Then, in 1981, two scholars from Taos, New Mexico, Arsenio Cordova and Larry Torres, concerned about their rapidly disappearing cultural heritage, decided to restore some of the old, almost forgotten celebrations of their ancestors, including Los Pastores.
And then you say, y nuestro hermano.
Y nuestro hermano Bartolo, ¿por qué no viene a cenar?
Sí.
Eres un gran Dios, nacido en paz.
It seems that for the longest while, these dramas had ceased. And then we were wondering what happened to all of them, because it seems that they were, when you look at the manuscripts that we have on file, either in our files or at the Museum of International Folk Art, the latest ones that we seem to find date to the 1920s. And then you wonder what happened between the 1920s and the 1980s before the revival or the Renaissance comes in all these. And then you realize, look at what's happening in the scope of world affairs. World War I comes, takes all of our men. World War II does exactly the same thing. Korean War, Vietnam War. It isn't until the Vietnam conflict gets resolved that people start coming home and looking again for places that were familiar to them, if not in their own lifetimes, at least things that their parents or grandparents told them, no? And so finally, after all of these interruptions, on a global scale, we can come back to the local scale and do the things that we used to do.
2 weeks before Christmas, Arsenio Cordova and Larry Torres take their troupe of actors and musicians to perform in the nearby villages of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains.
Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, la Compañía de la Santísima Trinidad and Sangre de Cristo Liturgies presents to you, And Then There Were Shepherds.
There are at least 12 musical scores in Los Pastores, and they all proceed and they are all intermixed with the narrative.
Descansan los pastores acostados. Quiero pasar poco a poco las cuentas de mi rosario. Hinco la rodilla en tierra y puesto en cruz los brazos, digo así: Padre nuestro, líbranos de los que nos hacen daño. Uy, Padre nuestro, por encima.
Pero no por encima de mí.
And in it, they talk about that holy night so long ago when the Christ child was born in Bethlehem. But Lucifer, the spirit of evil, had also seen it and decided to go confound them so that they would not go off to worship the newborn king.
¡Ay, mira qué tormento! hay al príncipe Lucifer. Yo, para desvelar a todos los hombres mortales, llamaré a todos los infiernos.
Some of the plays have lines which we thought were just folk music that had been put there. But as we've been studying the literature from South America, from Mexico particularly, and Spain, we know that there was a great, great poet by the name of Luis de Góngora. And Luis de Góngora does some lines which have been transferred over to the devil's lines later on. Among them, aprender flores de mí, lo que fue de ayer a hoy, que ayer maravilla fui, y hoy sombra de mí no soy. Learn flowers from me, from what I used to be. Yesterday I was the marvel of the place, and now I'm not even a shadow of my former self. That's strictly Góngora's work right there.
Es Miguel Arcángel, es verdad, San Miguel Arcángel, que una vez me echaste de los cielos por el pecado de Adán y Eva. Pero ya 2 veces no más de echar. Si quieres que me vaya, has de echarme. Vente, sin este nombrecito, vente. ¡El Altísimo! ¡El Altísimo! ¡Ay, ay, ay, ay! Desde el oriente al poniente, planetas de fuego ardiente.
Again, you have to remember that these people did not have microphones. They weren't actors. These were farmers, they were housewives, they were ordinary people who just did this for the love of history, the love of culture. And because of this, they had to remember it in one way or another. That's where the music comes in. The songs that would be most emblematic of Los Pastores are probably the ones toward the end of the narration or the end of the play, because the whole focus is on the birth of the Christ child and the great joy that they're feeling at the very end.
To all of you, Merry Christmas y que Dios los bendiga a todos.
Merry Christmas.
Go over there, because there's a camera. Stay with Bring down.
Yes?
My wife is pregnant and we need a place to stay.
I'm sorry, we have no room. All the verses that we know come from Ojo Caliente, La Madera, Vallecitos, Las Tablas, all these small northern communities. This goes back close to the 1500s. Yes?
We're really tired and my wife is pregnant and we need a place to stay.
Please, come on in.
Voces María es reina del cielo y madre va a ser del divino verbo.
These posadas carry on for 9 days, from the 16th through the 24th. And each day we do it in a different home. So people open up their doors and welcome us in their home to do these posadas.
Entre santos peregrinos, peregrinos, residen este rincón, aunque poblamos.
The traditions have slowly dwindled down, and that's what we're trying to keep up and make sure they don't get buried somewhere. It's very important to us because it's part of our culture. It's in our history that we, keep these traditions alive. There's so many traditions all over the world that are being forgotten, and we just want to make sure that we keep these going to the fullest and pass these things to our kids and so on down the line.
Vamos con alegría a ver a nuestra Virgen, al Hijo de María, ahí, 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 ese será Jesús, ahí, ahí, nos morirá su luz.
It's a very authentic group, and the music is great, and they have violins and guitars, and the music's so traditional, they're just incredible. The music reflects the journey that Mary and Joseph trying to find posada, trying to find a place for them to rest and have her child. This poor couple, they were just being turned down everywhere they went. The devil is used because they could see the evil of poor Mary and Joseph being turned back.
Vamos todos a Belén con amor y gozo, adoremos al Señor, nuestro Redentor.
This is an ancient tradition of our people, and any tradition that can bring education and stop the ignorance about our culture is very good.
Felices pastores, Navidad surgió, el cielo se rasga, Navidad nació. Vamos todos a Belén con amor y gozo, adoremos al Señor.
I would say 75-80% of the people who were coming were tourists.
Knock on the door for us.
I mean, I guarantee you they went home and they said, wow, these people, they've been practicing something for 500 years that's theirs, and wow, these people have been here a long time. I mean, that's perfect.
Goodness, what a beautiful girl. There you go. Right on. A ver, una gotita aquí. There you go, otra gotita aquí. There.
Drummers. Drummers to the back.
El día del Año Nuevo y nosotros vamos a la iglesia lo más temprano posible y adentro de la iglesia hablamos de la razón de nuestra cultura.
Happy New Year to everyone. It's so beautiful to see all of you here, you know, and it's an honor to be here amongst you. I'd like for all of you who are young to remember that the walls of this church were built by our forefathers. This church exists in the 1700s, and it's an honor to this community and to our faith. So today we honor Jesus Christ. We come and dance in his honor.
El llanero is a traveling song. El llanero. Llano means a prairie, but the llanero is the songs that the Comanche would sing as it traveled from one place to another.
Okay, guys, listen. I want you to know that our purpose here is for us to work and make some chimales, okay? Vamos a hacer unos chimales. Now, who knows what a chimal is? Un scudo. And that's the word that they use in Spain. And we use chimal. A chimal used to be what, a shield, right? But now today we use the chimal more as decorative, okay? Just to decorate, and we fancy when we dance, okay? So that's the purpose of that chimal. You're going to work with one of the...
We call ourselves Comanches because this is what our forefathers called themselves. And the reason they called themselves Comanches is because they traded with the community, and then a clan of the Comanches settled in Ranchos de Taos. The priests designated 5 categories of the mixed bloods, mixed being Indian with Spanish. The more mixed you were a Genízaro. So the Genízaro word was given to us by the priests, but we have been Comanches ever since. Before my grandfather was a kid, we were already Comanches, you know. And by the way, we did a DNA, and you won't believe this. My wife is more Native American than I am. But it's not the DNA that counts, you know. It's what's in your heart that counts. It's how you feel, how you've been raised, and how you see the beauty of what you in your community, and how you perpetuate that beauty.
Do you want to do el espantado?
You guys remember how to do the shield?
Espantado is a dance honoring the combatants. The reason it's named Espantado is because the dancers are to act like if they're scared of each other. Tino and Minnie, it's a girl and a guy. When they dance that dance, they dance from the heart. Hey, oh, 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 hey, oh, hey, oh, oh, hey, oh, hey, oh. It's an empty day without a drum beat in our valley. That's what's so important and so warming on New Year's Day. Even though it may be snowing or it may be very cold outside. But the drums, in my opinion, they warm up the hearts of many people in our community. And I am one of those recipients, and I have been since I was a child. So it just resonates beautiful memories of when I was a kid. That's what we do on New Year's Day.
Happy New Year! Happy New Year! ¡Feliz Año Nuevo! Happy New Year! Get closer. Los días got started in our family probably over 200 years ago. Hoy es día de Año Nuevo y así lo marca el reloj. A la familia bailones, buenos días le dé Dios. Despierten si están durmiendo, miren que ya amaneció. Los gallos están cantando y en sus puertas canto yo. Con respeto y con honor, escuchen, les voy a hablar. Antes de entrar a su casa, les pido permiso para entrar. At New Year's Day, 5 in the morning, we gather up. We already know what houses we're going to go, primarily to shut-ins, people that can't go out. Also, some people call us. We would like for you to stop by. Desde mi casa he venido lleno de mucha alegría a estar aquí con ustedes y darles los buenos días. And no matter what house we go to, invited or uninvited, they will open the door for us. Que viva día de gritarle aquí los amigos del cerro. Adentro, we continue singing verses that we have already made up, and then it comes to a stop. One person will go and get names so that we can include them in our verses that I make up for them while I'm in the house. Ese estilo de nosotros y no estilo comanche, que viva día de gritarle a la Billie Jane Sánchez. I have a very precious dog and I call her Riley, but this verse I dedicate to Mr. A.J. Wiley. Andamos dando los versos sin tambor y sin ollas. Que viva día de gritarle ya esta Pina Montoya. In my village of Amalia, back in the day when I was growing up, there would have been like 4 different groups, and they would compete for verses to see who was the best versista. We don't have that anymore, because right now there's only our group. Ya se acabó la lista, le doy gracias a Dios. Esta está muy larga, más larga que la de Santo Claus. De aquí lo estoy mirando, muy cruzaditos de brazo. Vamos a matar al año nuevo viejo y le damos un balazo. Happy New Year! Happy New Year! ¡Que viva Cerro! My experience has been that there are very few houses that we leave that we don't see tears of joy. Hoy es día de Año Nuevo. así lo marca el reloj. A la familia bailones, buenos días le dé Dios. María nos vinieron hoy.